Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome. Yay. Happy July 1st. Do you know that it's midway through the year, right? Yeah. So we're exactly halfway through the year, and it's Canada Day. And I know when I was mayor, Canada Day was actually my favorite time to be the mayor because it was such a community celebration, right? The whole community would come together. Like other celebrations are, other festivities and holidays are more focused on family, but this one is such a community celebration. And I loved, I'd get up early in the morning and be flipping pancakes for the whole community, and it was super fun. And there'd be activities all day, and so I know some of those activities have been dampened given what's going on, but it's such a day to be grateful and to remind yourself, okay, we're halfway through 2020, and it's also a great way to acknowledge, just with gratitude, where you are, where you've landed, and where you find yourself today. Which brings me to the land acknowledgement. I just want all of us to take a moment and take a deep breath and feel, just envision the land that is beneath your feet, and acknowledge the land in which you're joining us today. I know I'm here in the East Kootenay, and it is the territory of the Ktunaxa and the Shuswap Nation. And so wherever you are, just kind of give thanks to the land on which you reside and exist. So deep breath. Yay. We have so much to be grateful for. Hey. Awesome. Well, I want to welcome you to the Gather for Her. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Christina Benty, and we are going to be interviewing Charlene this morning. So it's going to be very exciting. I'd like to introduce my co-host to you. We have Sharon Marshall, and Sharon is our Gather for Her graphic recorder, and she's an Indigenous entrepreneur. She's the founder of Diva Training and Staffing Solutions, and the founder and president of Creative Collaborations, Inc. As well, she is freaking hilarious and sweet, and and has this big, beautiful heart, and do not underestimate her. She has a wealth of wisdom and knowledge, and I'm so grateful to have her in my life. She's amazing. I also want to introduce my other co-host and amazing braid sister, Tina. Give a wave, Tina. So Tina is a core communication specialist. She is a storyteller, performer, and a professional listener who works with narrative and story structure as a vehicle for human connection. And one thing, if you don't know Tina, her listening skills and her ability to capture what's been said and what hasn't been said, and to float it back to you in such a way that the ahas that you receive from just having a conversation with her are off the chart. So welcome, Tina. And I'm gonna turn things over to you to kind of get us started here.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And again, happy Canada Day, everyone. I'm just going to model my Canadian designer red dress from a friend of mine, Shelley Class, in a Blushing Boutique. I had this moment this morning. I'm like, oh, I should be wearing all things Canadian. If I can, I should. And yeah, so and this is a great segue to Charlene, an impact entrepreneur. I want to introduce you, Char. I know we're friends, and I could do the whole professional thing, and I will. But what I want people to know about you more than anything, Shar, is your deep devotion to this country, to your Indigenous roots, to the connections of women, and the impact that we make. It's an honor to be here and to work alongside you. Shar is a builder of strong women who lead. She's an Indigenous impact producer. She's a social impact producer. She's a former two-term politician, a community economic development enthusiast, and the founder and CEO of Powerhouse. Powerhouse delivers on the how for her. She's had a 20-year commitment to the expansion of human potential. And if you've ever had the pleasure of having a conversation with her, you will feel that 20-year commitment. She is a driver. Half the time you're on the back of the bus with her and you don't even know how you got there. Like all of a sudden you're just going. It is such a delight to be able to have this conversation with you and really dig into what moves you. For those of you who are just joining us right now, this is a 30-minute conversation with Charlene San Jenko. And after we get going, we should be done no later than 8:40. And then we have a wisdom circle that follows today. So Charlene, thank you for being here. Our theme this month, as you know, is modeling impact, and Gather for Her is an opportunity to explore and share our collective wisdom. So why don't we start a little bit, just if you wouldn't mind just saying hi. I just realized talked for a little bit. Just say hi so people can hear your voice.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. Thank you for flipping the tables this morning. And I want to acknowledge that my home, it's great to join you here from the Squamish, traditional unceded territory of the Squamish First Nations. And with your permission, I want to just tell you a little bit about my family and my Indigenous roots. And I am new to discovering my heritage in the last 3 years. My birth family is from the Splatsin tribe of the Shuswap Nation. And so I was born in Enderby, BC, and I'm of mixed heritage, and that is why I have blue eyes. I have known since I was just 3 years old that I am adopted, and I've known since I was 47 years old that I am Indigenous. So the last 3 years have been reconciling those two pieces, and that is actually a very important part of what drives me. So I'm excited for today's conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Shar. You have this way of layering life and goals and impact all at the same time, and we've created this gathering each week called Gather for Her. And I wonder if you might reflect a little bit on what that has meant for you, what surprised you about it, and what you look most forward to.
Yeah, I think the journey to Gather for Her actually started 5 years ago when we first started doing the Power Talk speaker series. And it was my desire at that point to have women publicly talk about how they are leading in the world. And it was my desire that by them publicly talking about it, it would root their commitment to it and broaden their scope to lead bolder and braver in that commitment. So when you publicly declare something shifts and happens because the universe knows you're really serious about it. And the timing wasn't quite right. It was an incredible series and we met some wonderful women. However, the speaking took precedent over the leading. And after putting 200 women on stage, I pulled back a little bit because I really was craving women who were very deliberately and intentionally leading impact, to have a platform to come and speak about it. And so I just hit pause for a while, and I trusted the timing of the universe and my own growth and my ability to call. And the result of that, after timing and 2020, Gather for Her emerged. And I think just the true, that I knew it was a sign, just Gather for Her, because again, it is all about for her. It's all about the impact that we're here to make. It actually isn't about me. It's not about me on stage. It's not about me speaking and my message and my, and so I just knew as Gather for Her emerged that it landed for me, and I started to get really excited about it. And I thought, okay, this has legs. If you can commit to, consistently and constantly gathering women every week who are ready to talk about what they're up to in the world, beyond and beside themselves, now you're on to something.
That's go ahead, Christine. I was going to actually go to you. Go for it.
It reminds me what Sarah said last week, and that is that these conversations, this kind of experience, the Gather for Her, it advances my own thinking, right? It expands it, it advances it, and it reminds us that we're all feeding off one another, learning from one another, but advancing our own thinking for a larger impact, right? So that's beautiful. And I was I was curious about your own leadership journey. Say more about that. Like what has inspired you to think about advancing your own thinking? Like, who are some of your mentors and what's been the process?
Well, that was probably the biggest catalyst is my search for mentors, my search for the type of women that modeled what I knew was what I wanted. I craved, and you can tell by the pack I run with now, like I crave strong, energetic, positive, driven, intentional women. You don't have to go far around my circle to see that. But I've craved that type of woman ever since I can remember. And you'll laugh, but I was the little kid watching Charlie's Angels. And not because of the plot of the show or the incredible acting, because they represented to a little girl trying to put pieces together what it actually meant to be a confident, strong, capable woman in the early 80s, when really that wasn't really apparent, you really had to look. But I will say that I was also lucky enough to be brought up in a church-going setting. And if you watched my one-woman show, or you were part of my one-woman show, the staged reading, like, you'll know that I was lucky enough to have some incredible, teachers in that, and just piano teachers, music teachers, Sabbath school teachers that had an influence. So the leadership journey started at a very, very young age and took it was a very non-typical journey, for sure, and took many twists and turns. But I think the one constant has always been, I can't learn it from a book. I have to do it. And sometimes to my, to my detriment, like I learn by doing. I'm a very kinesthetic learner. And I guess maybe that's where modeling is so attractive to me, because that's how I learn. So I have to see that it's possible. I have to, and then I go after it.
I want to come back to this beautiful thing that you said about a little girl trying to put pieces together. And I remember when when I was first getting to know you, and if anyone's ever been in this, just getting to know Charlene, this may resonate for you. I remember just thinking, I don't get it, but I get it. Like just being around you, I was like, I don't get what she's doing, but I can feel it. And I remember I asked you, I'm like, okay, what is this really all about? And I was like doing that story tracker thing. And you looked at me and you said very plainly, you said, when the phone rings at the PM's office and before she picks up, she finds out it's Powerhouse on the line, that's why she picks up. And I was like, oh, now I get it. So I want to come back to a little girl trying to put the pieces together and why it's she for her. There's something in the her piece and this putting the pieces together and creating a movement for the phone to ring and somebody answers and says, yeah, I'll take that call. Can you speak a little bit to whatever resonates for you in the three little pieces I just put in front of you, the little girl, the phone, whatever grabs you.
Yeah. I'll try to start here and see if I can jump to all three. Yeah, I think it's always been for her, because I guess I've always known instinctively about my privilege. Even as a mixed heritage woman, I was adopted out of the foster care system. And so I have grown up with a some days very heavy sense of responsibility. And if you see my focus and my seriousness, some days my girlfriends always tell me to turn up the fun meter. Like I surround myself with people who remind me, and my husband, to turn up the fun meter, because I take really seriously the fact that I was adopted out of the foster care system. And so then for her, it's remembering, there's that quote with privilege comes a responsibility. And I'll take a bit of a breath in here, because I think it's very important to acknowledge on Canada Day, as an Indigenous woman who is learning and listening about my culture, I'm not proud of how we got to where we are on Canada Day. I am not proud. And what I am proud of and what I am celebrating on Canada Day is the incredible strength and resiliency of Indigenous peoples. And if I can do anything to hold space for healing to happen and for people to bridge new friendships and learning and listening between Indigenous and non-Indigenous people, then we're starting to have a flicker of something to be excited about. But to wave a Canada flag without that is not what it's about for me. And I had the privilege a couple of years ago of speaking at an event called Raven Speak, and it was my tribute to the strength of Indigenous people, and I was brand new. I actually felt quite uncomfortable being on that stage, but it gave me the opportunity for me to let them know, my brothers and sisters know how incredibly just powerful and resilient, and with great respect. So I have to say that on Canada Day, because it's wrapped into this for me. And I think the piece about what is possible is I've always observed, the potential of an inspired, perhaps, network, like the potential of a collective. I've observed it right from a kid. I've seen different ecosystems of collective power stretched out across Canada, be it churches across Canada, be it sports teams across Canada, as someone that was a pretty big sports fan and tomboy. And then growing up and getting into my career, companies that, with branches across Canada. And I always wondered, I always kind of questioned, knowing how incredibly smart and resourceful women are, I always questioned why our collective influence and our organizational and mobilizing ability wasn't stronger than it is. And I see wisps of it. And so I thought, okay, there's some great organizations and groups and movements and incredible different teams and coaches and you name it, it's all out there. But the thing that's missing is the connectivity and the interconnectivity to fully harness the energy and the power of what we know is there and available. And that's part of power. That's the new power emerging, right?
Oh, there's a couple things that I want to kind of segue off of that you said, Char, and that is around acknowledging the, on Canada Day, of the light and the dark, right? Like the shadow side of us, and then talking about that for our organizations, that light and that shadow side. I think that's so important. And to be quite honest, in my experience, women seem to be more attuned to being able to do that, acknowledge their shadow side, and to incorporate it. I mean, I think we spend a lot of time trying to hide it and to kind of keep it under wraps. But I think what we're seeing is a recognition of that shadow side, and how do we incorporate that. So thank you for that. I think that's important to acknowledge. And I think about that on Canada Day too. As enthusiastic as I am about that, it's actually really important to acknowledge that there's a shadow side, and that there's a cost, and that there has been a cost. And so when we incorporate those things, that's how we integrate ourselves, right? And it's our integrated self, our wholeness. And I know you talk a lot about wholeness. So thank you for that. Tell us though a little bit, I want to jump back to where you ended, and that is, that's what Powerhouse is all about. So why is Powerhouse a house?
Yeah, it's interesting, I guess. Again, like you speak what you know, and you create what you crave. And again, it's back to my upbringing of having a place to go on a regular basis, that kept you aligned with what you believed. And And it was that constant reinforcement. And I always craved, now I say there's not enough places to go for everyday people for the healing we need. And, I don't go to church anymore. And you think about it, where do people go? Where do people go? And yet we just assume that we're going to be whole and healed and happy. We assume that that's our set point. And it is when we're little, until something happens in life, right? And so I always craved creating space where people could come and be accepted, and meet on a regular basis, because I'm a very big believer in consistency. It's just like going to the gym, just like going to church, and that's why a house, because I just don't think there's enough places to go to get what you need to be who you truly are and who you've always been. And somehow you've gotten mixed up in it all and forgotten it all. And there's, yeah.
Well, I was going to jump in just for a second, because I was thinking about the image of the house, and I don't know, I just feel like I haven't had an epiphany. It's like, we also have in our houses, we have basements, and we have dirt under the carpet.
Right.
We have our clean spots, and we have our messy spots, right?
A little bit, yeah.
And how beautiful to have a house where we're not afraid to talk about the dark stuff. We're not afraid to talk about the shadow. We're not afraid to talk about the messy, uncomfortable, uncertain parts of life. We actually, that's integration. It's all of it. It's owning the shadow and the light, both the beauty and the dark, and incorporating that. And that's part of a house. And that's what you were talking about, a place to go where you get to be your whole self. So
I want to riff on that, add a little bit to that. I love that word crave, Shar, and I put this out to anyone listening right now, how that word speaks to you, because we are all driven by belonging, all of us. We're hardwired for it, and when we get to belong somewhere where we don't have to hide the parts of us that are made a little louder than other parts, a little bit sharper than other parts, a little bit more, it's not that it's dangerous, but can feel dangerous because we're kind of intense there. It connects back to this, the Powerhouse is a house of leaders for global impact. It's really hard to make an impact when you're just being super soft all the time. Like, prepare for impact is what we hear, right? Prepare for impact. And so when I think about the house and this place for leaders where we can bring our whole self to the table, all of a sudden we're safe, we're accepted, we're nourished, we're even like pushed, like, yeah, go do more, go be a bit more dangerous. Guess what? I've got your back. Guess what? This thing that you do, I'm behind you. Then we can make an impact. And I'd love to segue over, like to go right into impact for you, because the healing piece happens in the house, but it doesn't happen when we're sitting around healing. It actually happens because there's lots of places for that. And I'm not judging that. There's lots of places to restore and heal, but your healing modality is very different. I mean, your vision for it, I should say. It happens in the doing. And I would love to hear you speak a bit more about impact and what that means to you.
Yeah, I'd love to. I think to speak about impact, I'll tell you a really quick story, because the word impact is thrown around a lot right now. And it ties in with, so closely for me, with the word lead. Because if you are leading, the way that believe in leading, impact is the natural result. And it's interesting. I had a great conversation yesterday with Amanda, and we were talking about women's leadership. We were talking about leading. And I said, you know, Amanda, I need to tell you, you know, little disclaimer here. I've been kind of thrown into the whole women's leadership world. And really what I mean by leading, it actually comes out of a bit of a debate that I had with my mom at one point, my adopted mother. And long story short, my adopted mom was quite upset that I had quit going to church. And I said to her, Mom, if I live and if I live and model, you know, what I believe, I will be a better witness to people throughout my life than any time in church will ever do. So how I live every day, I want people to witness my values and who I am. I have believed that for as long as I can remember. And to me, that I couldn't find that in the world, and I just assumed that was leadership. And so when people started to acknowledge Powerhouse as a women's leadership organization, I was like, yeah, that's what we do. However, because of human language and context and having to put someone in a box, I will tell you, back up the bus for 20 years, and really what I most crave is to help women explore and expand their potential, and then model that and witness through how they are every single day, what they believe and what their values are. And the obvious natural result will be their impact in the world. It's a given. It's just a given. Just do what you do. Just lift the weights and get stronger. You know, just it's just a given. And so impact for me comes from a place of, what if we got up every day and we were willing to push into that point where we felt stretched and uncomfortable and absolutely fearful? What if that is actually how we're meant to be living? And I know it's bizarre, it's like bizarro world, but what if ever since we were 3 years old, we were taught that to truly experience all of what life is meant to be, the whole point of our human existence for the 80 some odd years, oh, it'll be 100 for me, but 80 some odd years we're here. The whole name of the game was to wake up every morning and to push into it to the point of uncomfortableness, to the point where you actually are full of fear, so that you meet faith to unlock another step of what is possible and what is your potential. But we never step into it, because from a young age, we are taught to be careful. We are taught to be coddled and comfortable. We are taught to, you know, be cautious. And I just know, because I've dedicated half my life to physical training, I know that that is not how you grow. That's the difference between someone that goes to the gym for 20 years, still trying to lose the same 10 pounds, and someone who goes to the gym and competes in a bodybuilding show. Same thing, they're both going. What's the difference? What's the difference between those two people? And that is the same with living. Like, are we really, really experiencing what it is, what it means to live? That's where I like to push into. That's what gets me excited.
This brings me to the next piece of the work of Powerhouse. And you've just done an exceptional job at letting the world in on the tangible, intangible of Powerhouse, which is the secret sauce, is the connectivity, the faith, the allowing. I think I said this yesterday in our team meeting, what Powerhouse knows how to do is breathe together. And in that, things happen. So just for anyone listening who might be like, what is she talking about? The tangible, intangible, what? So the story arc of a woman who walks into Powerhouse, because I want to get to the last piece, Shar, that you do, which is on impact media, is that a woman walks in the door at Powerhouse and she just has a craving to belong, where her bigness or greatness or impact inside can be met. And then she's like, oh, wow, you're like me. I'm like you. Oh my gosh. And there's things I can learn here so I can develop that more. She might come together for her. She might take a few programs. And eventually she's like, I know what I do, and I know what I'm here for, and I know what my message is. And then we're going to help her amplify that message. And then once she's like, oh, I'm doing it. I'm saying it. I'm grounded and I'm doing it. Then it's like, I think I have a project that I really want to give the world, like a legacy piece or a difference maker. And that's where Shar's final piece of the story arc of what Powerhouse does in the house, which is an impact media project. And this thing that you just said, Shar, about pushing to the point of uncomfortableness, I so love that in media can do that heavy lifting for us, because we might not want to make people uncomfortable, but our media can. So I wonder if you can speak a little bit about, like, you've now moved into this role of an Indigenous impact media producer. I'm curious about what that means to you, and how it's different from anything you've ever done before, and what's your hope for this?
Yeah. Thank you for asking. Like in truly modeling what I believe, I am pushing myself and my team into the next phase of growth for me in learning and growth, and for Powerhouse. And for the past 20 years, I mean, the impetus of Powerhouse started in 2000. So for the past 20 years, I've worked in the field of empowerment and advancement and mobilization and building strong women who lead in numerous different ways. And over the last few years, obviously with social media, online media, digital media, I've just observed, and again, you watch for that craving and that calling, and what's tapping you on the shoulder. And when I grew up with Oprah, and when I watched Oprah progress in her own evolvement from being a everyday talk show host at a very surfacey level to where Oprah's now at with Super Soul Sundays, it doesn't take much to see how she's using the vehicle of media for her work. And in the last few years, watching the Obamas getting into producing, watching Hillary Clinton or their daughter get into producing, most recently watching LeBron James and Maverick Carter start a media company for what they feel is very important work in the world right now. And so for me, I know that the power and the reach that media has, and I also believe that there is a deadline on my work. I believe that there's a deadline. I've given myself a deadline of 10 years. By 2030, there's some very clear goals of where Powerhouse wants to be. There's some very clear tangibles. I don't want to be looping around in the same leadership conversations that we've had for the last 20 years. So what's going to change? What are we ready to do differently? And so for me, impact producing, it really does mean, like, how do we use the vehicle of media, which we can it doesn't take anyone, like anybody that has two eyes and a brain and a heart can see the influence that media has. So now how do we channel that power for good? How do we deliberately and intentionally, and impact producing has been around for a few years. And it basically means, how do you use film and in most cases that's documentary, to create social change. And there's an impact producer basically does a lot of the pieces that Powerhouse already does, works on engagement and outreach and campaigns and grassroots events and screenings. And, you know, it's about mobilizing an audience for a purpose. Where I'd like to take it is beyond the work of documentaries into film, into short pieces that are all purpose-driven to up-level how people are living and to reconnect them to their values, and to really get a clear message across around how healing happens. Because I think everything that we're experiencing in life right now, at a place in 2020 on Canada Day 2020 that feels absolutely surreal, like that we are all in a movie right now, is because we're so focused on the flare-ups, and really we need to address the wound.
Yeah, it really comes back to healing, doesn't it? It actually comes back around to healing. And then modeling that healing and having it expand out from the house into the world, making an impact. Ripple after ripple after ripple.
Yeah. And I'm extremely grateful. We're kicking off our first project today officially with my team. And we have the honor of working with Canadian award-winning filmmaker Deanne Whalen on her project and her dedication to 500 Days in the Wild. And we're announcing that partnership. Be announcing that today. And so what does that mean? Well, we're walking beside her like we do with every strong woman who leads, but we're walking beside her. We do what we do. We're bringing our gifts to help in some fundraising to produce the film and create the film. She'll be coming off the trail, completing her 24,000 kilometer journey that has taken her 5 years, and she'll be starting film production in early 2021. So this is officially, this is our first project. And I think we have been doing impact media work. We've been doing it for the past 7 years, and now we're just ready to fully step into it.
Oh, wow. That's fabulous. Hey, I want to bring Sharon into this conversation and invite Sharon to say a few words about what you heard today. Sharon is our graphic artist, and the way she captures these conversations through her work is so powerful and impactful. And talk about an impact, right? A way to collate what's been said and provide a beautiful visual for us. And so I'm curious about some of the images that are coming up for you, Sharon, in this conversation.
Thank you for that, Christina. Great conversation. How do you draw crave? That's what I'm trying to figure out here, because it's come up a few times, and it's something that probably resonates with a lot of us here on this call. But anyways, yeah, I'm thinking about that. And a couple of things that you mentioned, Charlene, and although you didn't actually say this, these words, this is what you meant. And that is, I have the responsibility to work to my fullest potential. And that's what you believe that we all should be doing. And that's actually what Sarah said last week as well. And I'm sure Tina probably said it back in the beginning of June as well. So yeah, the House of Leaders for Global Impact and Powerhouse is the bridge between Indigenous and non-Indigenous women. And so right now during Canada Day and knowing our Canadian history and your Indigenous ancestry and mine, what's come up for me is the truth and reconciliation and how being the bridge is so important. And I mean, each of us, Indigenous or non-Indigenous, can be the bridge. And that is how we will reconcile. And that's where the healing will come. And so those ideas and themes really stand out for me. And yeah, I'm going to spend a little bit of time thinking about Crave. So thank you.
Nice. That's awesome. That's beautiful. And it feeds back into one of the things that Shar said, and that really stood out for me, and that is Powerhouse being a place where women's, their bigness can be met. And so one of the things, whether you're here live or whether you're listening to this recording later on, think about that. Think about your bigness. Where does it want to exist? Where have you pushed it in and been risk averse and held it? And know that this is a place, this is a house where your bigness can be met. And that includes the light and the shadow. And it includes a place where you're held as you integrate. But it's a place where your bigness is welcome and where we see that maybe your bigness can be even bigger, right? So thank you for that. And thank you, Shar, for seeing this as a little girl watching Charlie's Angels, right? Paying attention to what's going on. Where are the models? Where are the mentors? How can I be one, and how can I draw them to me so that we can build this house together? Because nothing important happens alone, and we're all aware of this. And so we really are, and we're using the catchphrase, we're stronger together, but we really are stronger together. And when we've created a space where there's room for our bigness, boy, yeah, healing can happen, impact can happen, a lot can happen. So thank you for that.
I want to just go back to you, Shar, and thank you, Christina, for that, and Sharon for doing. It was so beautiful to hear you track the story. Thank you for that, for your gifts. Shar, I want to give you any just last final thoughts before we wrap this up and move into a wisdom circle for those who'd like to stay with us. If you could give us if there's one last thing that you really want us to know, what would you spray paint the sky with?
Because I think the power of Gather for Her is not any one conversation, but the thread that runs through all conversations. I'm going to reach back to a conversation we had recently with Joanna from League of Innovators. And as an accelerator for young social entrepreneurs and innovators, the one thing Joanna said that still rings in my ears is the one thing they are teaching the generation coming up after us is to be bolder, bigger, and braver. That's the number one thing. And so beyond business plans, beyond banking, beyond balance sheets, yes, the technical must be there, but to get where we need to be and where we can be by 2030, for me, it is, how can I be bigger, bolder, and braver today?
Yeah. Wow. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're going to close our Gather for Her time. I thank you all for joining us for this conversation. We've just spray painted the sky with bolder, bigger, braver for all to see. So thanks, everyone.